The summer of 1996 was supposed to be a time of freedom for the children of a small Hungarian town called Kecskemét. It was a place where parents still believed the world was safe enough to let their kids play outside until the streetlights flickered on. Among them was Veronika Esterházy, a lively 12-year-old girl with a laugh that carried across the dusty courtyard of the apartment block where she lived. She had long dark hair, usually tied in a careless ponytail, and a curious mind that often led her beyond the places where most kids dared to go. On the evening of June 14th, Veronika told her mother she was going to meet her friend Anna at the park. It was barely a 10-minute walk. Her mother remembers she wore a white t-shirt with a faded Mickey Mouse print and denim shorts. Nothing unusual. But Veronika never came back. By 9 p.m., her mother went to the park, expecting to find her playing on the swings. Instead, the place was empty. Anna had never seen her that day. Panic set in quickly. Neighbors spread out through the streets, calling her name. At midnight, the police were contacted. At first, authorities assumed she had run away. In the 1990s, the region was plagued by stories of teenagers fleeing broken homes. But Veronika wasn't a runaway. She had no reason, no history of conflict. And as the days turned into weeks, it became clear. Something darker had happened. Witnesses began to surface. A local shopkeeper claimed he saw a man in a green van parked near the park around 7 p.m. Another woman reported hearing a child scream in the alley behind the cinema. But the police dismissed these accounts as unreliable. Then, a chilling discovery. In the woods just outside town, searchers found Veronika's backpack. Inside were her notebooks, a half-empty bottle of water, and a folded drawing she had made of her family. There was no sign of her. The investigation turned chaotic. Rumors spread that a trafficking ring was operating across Hungary, snatching children to sell them into Western Europe. Some whispered about corruption, that the police themselves were protecting the criminals. Veronika's family was left in torment. Her father, a factory worker, began drinking heavily. Her mother spent nights putting up posters in Budapest, hoping someone, anyone, had seen her daughter. And then, a letter arrived. Written in shaky handwriting, it claimed Veronika was alive, being held in Slovakia, and would be released if the family paid a ransom. The letter demanded secrecy, but when the police traced it, they discovered it was a cruel hoax, written by a local teenager seeking attention. Months passed. Leads dried up. But whispers continued about a green van, about men connected to organized crime, about girls disappearing not just in Kecskemét but in neighboring towns too. And that was when detectives realized Veronika's case was not isolated. It was part of something much bigger, much darker, and far more dangerous than anyone wanted to admit. By the end of the summer of 1996, the Esterházy family was barely functioning. Veronika's bedroom remained untouched. Her toys stacked neatly, her favorite books lying open on the nightstand, as if she might walk through the door any moment. But she never did. The police's official stance was no evidence of foul play. This enraged her parents. No evidence? A 12-year-old vanishes into thin air. Her backpack turns up in the woods, and they called it no evidence. Locals began accusing the authorities of negligence, or worse, corruption. Hungary in the 1990s was not a stable place. The fall of communism had left cracks everywhere. In the economy, in law enforcement, and in public trust. Organized crime flourished. People whispered about gangs smuggling everything from stolen cars to human beings across borders that were suddenly porous. When rumors emerged that children were being targeted, taken from small towns and villages, most dismissed it as urban legend. But Veronika's disappearance gave the whispers weight. Her mother, Clara, started her own investigation. She kept a notebook where she wrote down every rumor, every tip, every strange phone call. One entry described a woman who claimed to have seen Veronika in a gas station near the Slovak border. Frightened, thin, escorted by two men. The police ignored it, but Clara didn't. She begged them to follow up, but nothing happened. Meanwhile, journalists began circling. One, in particular, stood out, Martin Kovacs, a young reporter from Budapest with a reputation for digging into uncomfortable truths. He traveled to Kecskemét, spoke with the family, and promised he wouldn't let the case fade away. Kovacs soon uncovered disturbing connections. Other children had gone missing in the past 3 years. A 9-year-old boy in Szeged, a teenage girl near Győr, and another case from Debrecen. None were solved. Police labeled them all as runaways. But the similarities were striking. All vanished near public spaces. All disappeared without a trace. And in 2 cases, witnesses mentioned a green van. The pattern was too obvious to ignore. Kovacs published a series of articles titled The Vanishing Generation. He suggested the disappearances were linked to a trafficking ring supplying children to Western Europe. The police denied it. Politicians brushed it off. But for families like the Esterházys, it was confirmation of what they had feared all along. Veronica was not alone. Then came another chilling twist. In November 1996, hunters in the Bács-Kiskun forest stumbled upon a shallow grave. Inside were the remains of a child, too decomposed for quick identification. The town held its breath, fearing it was Veronica, but forensic testing showed it wasn't her. The body belonged to another girl, age estimated between 10 and 13. No missing persons report matched her. To this day, she remains unidentified. The discovery pushed fear into hysteria. Parents stopped letting their children walk alone. Schools organized escorts. Strangers were viewed with suspicion. The image of the green van became almost mythical, a monster lurking on wheels. Clara, refusing to give up, went to the media again. She appeared on national television, holding up Veronica's photo and begging, "If you've seen her, please, I don't care where, just tell me. Don't let her become another nameless child in the woods." After her plea, tips flooded in. Some claimed Veronica had been seen in Vienna. Others swore she was in Prague. One caller insisted she had been sold to a wealthy man in Germany. Each lead was followed. Each one collapsed into nothing. But one detail kept returning. Witnesses described men with foreign accents. Slovak, Romanian, sometimes even Russian. It hinted at a network larger than anyone dared to imagine. By spring of 1997, nearly a year after Veronica's disappearance, the official investigation was suspended. For the authorities, the case was cold. For her family, the nightmare was eternal. And then, almost exactly 1 year later, another girl vanished in nearly identical circumstances, less than 40 kilometers from where Veronica had last been seen. The pattern was undeniable now. Someone was hunting children. And Veronica's disappearance was only the beginning. By the summer of 1997, the disappearance of another girl, Zofia Halish, age 11, forced the public to confront a horrifying reality. This was no isolated tragedy. This was a pattern. Zofia vanished on her way home from school in a village outside Kiskunfalajaza. Witnesses once again reported a green van lingering near the schoolyard. But when police arrived, there was no trace of it. No trace of her. The parents of both Veronica and Zofia joined forces, desperate to pressure the authorities. They staged demonstrations outside police headquarters, holding photos of their daughters, demanding answers. Yet the response remained infuriatingly muted. Officers blamed limited resources. Some even hinted the families were exaggerating for attention. But then came a breakthrough from an unexpected source. Journalist Martin Kovacs, who had never let go of Veronica's case, received an anonymous phone call one late evening. The voice on the other end was male, shaky, with a heavy accent. He claimed he had worked with the people who took the girl. He wouldn't give his name, but he promised to meet if Kovacs came alone. Against his better judgment, Kovacs agreed. The meeting took place in a half-abandoned rail yard on the edge of Budapest. Under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a thin, nervous man approached. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette. "They pay me to drive," the man said in broken Hungarian. "Only drive, not ask questions." He confessed that he had transported children, always at night, always under strict orders never to look back. He didn't know names, but he described a familiar detail. A green van, always accompanied by a black Mercedes. The routes, he explained, usually ended near the Slovak border. There, the children were handed off to different men. "Why are you telling me this?" Kovacs asked, voice low. The man exhaled smoke, eyes darting nervously. "Because one day it will be my child. And nobody will care." Before Kovacs could press further, the man walked away into the darkness, leaving behind more questions than answers. Armed with this lead, Kovacs published another explosive article, "Children for Sale, Hungary's Silent Trade." It accused organized crime syndicates of abducting minors and moving them across borders with the complicity, or at least negligence, of the police. The reaction was immediate and violent. Kovacs received threats. His apartment door was vandalized with red paint. Anonymous callers hissed warnings into his phone. "Stop digging, or you'll end up in the woods too." Still, he pressed on. He tracked down truck drivers who confirmed rumors of seeing frightened children at border crossings, hidden in vans or trucks. None dared testify officially. Fear kept them silent. Meanwhile, Clara, Veronica's mother, clung to Kovacs's work like a lifeline. She began following him on interviews, standing beside him at press conferences, her grief-stricken face becoming the symbol of a movement. More families with missing children stepped forward. Suddenly, Veronica's case was no longer an isolated wound. It was part of a national scar. But the authorities tightened their grip. Files began disappearing. Witnesses who had spoken out recanted their statements. One policeman, off the record, told Kovacs, "You don't understand how deep this goes. Some of our own bosses, they're in on it. Stop before you disappear too." Then came the moment that shifted everything. In late 1997, a customs officer at the Slovak border stopped a suspicious van. Inside, he found two men, both with forged documents and three terrified children. The kids were not Hungarian but Romanian, reportedly orphans. The men were arrested, but before they could be properly interrogated, paperwork errors and political pressure led to their quiet release. The children vanished into state care and were never heard from again. To the families, this was proof of corruption at the highest levels. To Kovacs, it was confirmation that Veronica's fate was entangled in an international machine far bigger than Hungary alone. Yet Clara held onto a single fragment of hope. She was convinced Veronica was still alive, that her daughter had not been found in a grave, that somewhere, perhaps across a border, she might still be waiting. And then, one night in January 1998, Clara received a phone call that froze her blood. A girl's voice whispered on the line, "Mama." The call lasted only seconds before the line went dead. Was it Veronica? A cruel prank? Or a desperate cry for help silenced before it could continue? The mystery deepened. And now, for the first time, Clara felt the nightmare was reaching directly into her home. When Clara heard the voice whisper, "Mama," on the phone, her body went numb. It was soft, shaky, but so familiar that her heart nearly stopped. Before she could respond, the line cut, leaving her standing in the kitchen with the receiver pressed to her ear, listening to nothing but static. She called the police immediately, but they dismissed her. "Probably a prank," the officer muttered, barely bothering to take notes. But Clara refused to believe it. She begged them to trace the call. The request went nowhere, so she turned to the only person who still seemed to care, Martin Kovacs. Kovacs contacted a friend of his, a former telecommunications technician, who agreed to help. After some digging, they discovered that the call had been placed from a public phone booth in Bratislava, Slovakia, just across the border. The location reignited Clara's fragile hope. Bratislava was a known hub for trafficking. If Veronica had been there, even briefly, it meant she might still be alive. But the problem was timing. By the time anyone checked the booth, the trail was cold. Still, Kovacs was relentless. He traveled to Bratislava, photographing the area, talking to shopkeepers and pedestrians near the booth. Most remembered nothing unusual, but one woman, a florist across the street, recalled seeing a young girl with long hair, looking frightened, standing near the booth that night. She had been accompanied by a tall man in a dark coat. The description chilled Clara. It matched what several earlier witnesses had said. Children never seemed to be alone. They were always escorted, controlled. Back in Hungary, fear spread like a disease. More cases emerged. In March 1998, a 14-year-old boy named Thomas disappeared on his way home from soccer practice. 2 weeks later, a 10-year-old girl named Petra never returned from the bakery. Both families reported sightings of the green van nearby. By now, the green van had become a specter in the national consciousness. Parents whispered about it in schoolyards, newspapers printed grainy sketches, and children themselves whispered to each other, "If the van comes, run." Kovacs, meanwhile, was piecing together a terrifying puzzle. The van wasn't just a random vehicle, it was part of a larger operation. He traced its license plates, which kept changing, but found one recurring link: a Slovak transport company rumored to be a front for organized crime. When he tried to confront the company, he was met with silence. Then, days later, his car was forced off the road by a black Mercedes. He survived, shaken but unhurt. It was a message: stop digging. Clara, too, faced intimidation. Strange men lingered outside her home at night. Anonymous letters slipped under her door warned her to let go or risk her other children. But she had no other children, only Veronica. The message was clear: we're watching you. Despite the danger, she refused to stop. She started working with other grieving parents, forming a grassroots group called the Voices of the Missing. They held rallies, wrote petitions, and demanded government accountability. For a brief moment, it seemed like the country was waking up. Then came a devastating blow. In July 1998, bones were found near the Danube. At first, everyone feared the worst. Rumors spread that it was Veronica. Clara nearly collapsed when police asked for dental records. But after agonizing weeks, testing confirmed the remains belonged to another missing child, Petra, the girl who had vanished from the bakery. The discovery confirmed their darkest fears. Not all children taken by the van survived. Yet Clara refused to give up on Veronica. "She called me," she told anyone who would listen. "She's alive. I know it." But Kovacs was beginning to feel the weight of despair. In a late-night meeting with Clara, he admitted, "We're fighting something bigger than us. Politicians, police, criminals, they're all tied together. They don't want us to find her. Because if we do, the whole system cracks." Still, he promised one thing: "I'll follow this to the end, even if it destroys me." That promise would come to define his fate. Because only weeks later, Martin Kovacs vanished too. He never returned from a trip to Budapest. His apartment was found in disarray, his notes missing, his computer wiped. Police claimed he had left the country, but no one who knew him believed it. For the families of the missing, his disappearance was confirmation that the monster they were fighting was not only real but powerful enough to silence anyone. Clara now stood alone against the darkness, with only the memory of a voice on the phone to keep her alive. And deep down, she began to wonder, was Veronica truly still out there? Or was hope the cruelest trap of all? Clara never stopped searching. And then one night, in an abandoned warehouse near the Austrian border, she found it. A message scratched into the wall in a child's handwriting. "Mama, I was here." It was Veronica's, but the warehouse was empty. No voices, no footsteps, only silence. The police ignored her discovery, dismissing it as graffiti. Years later, bones of several children were found near the border, but none were ever identified. Veronica's fate remained a mystery, and the green van? It was never found. Yet even today, truckers whisper of a van that appears at night on empty roads, its door half open, as if waiting for someone else to step inside.